Alrighty, welcome to Esoteric Beat. We're going to try something a little bit different today. I'm going to be putting order from chaos by sorting some of my old papers, which I have, as you can see, over on the bed in several boxes. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to just sort of narrate my process here as I go through all of these papers. These are what survives. I have an entire recycle bin that I filled when I was going through uh, the storage, and yeah, filled an entire, like, one of those big recycling bins filled with all my old papers from grad school and college and notebooks and all these printouts and things. So this should be the distilled collection, the Esoteric Beat Library. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is, first of all, I need to get them out of these stinky old boxes, and we've got a filing cabinet for me here, so I'm going to be filing them. So I thought I'd come up with some categories, and on the surface we got right here, I'll be stacking up some of the important ones that, and I'll just be sort of naming the articles, maybe talking about the scholars involved and tell any stories I might have. So let's go ahead and get started here. This is a box labeled Esoteric Studies Printouts, so definitely going to be in the esoteric wheelhouse for the most part. What else have I got in here? I got a shoe box. That's going to have to find a home. So, oh, okay, so this is a classic. I come as sent by God. This is Seeing the Word, John Dee in Renaissance Occultism. You can see that I've extensively noted it. And this is a book I got turned on to by Christopher Larrick, who's a scholar who wrote on Dee in his book, The Occult Mind. And he was one of the speakers, might have been the keynote speaker at an esoteric studies conference I went to, and that was actually my first conference way back in 2005 or 6. That was the Association for the Study of Esotericism, and it was a good recommendation. I highly recommend this study of Dee that uses a lot of kind of critical theory and very up to date in terms of the theory. All right, what have we got here? More John Dee. Deborah Harkness, John Dee's Conversations with Angels. So we'll just pile that up. Now here is Joseph Blaw's Christian Kabbalah. First of all, I got to say about Deb Harkness, this book is pretty awesome. This was one of the books that really got me into the study of Dee. You can see that I've got a lot of notes about places to go, and actually, a big part of my master's thesis was inspired by learning that John Dee, and this is something Deborah Harkness discovered herself doing archival work. John Dee had a copy of Pseudo Dionysius, and in the margins of that, he wrote one of the words that he channeled in his angelic conversations. So, Deborah Harkness, John Dee's Conversation with Angels is a great place to start, like great first book to read if you're interested in John Dee and the angelic conversations. So Joseph Blau's Christian Kabbalah, that was what I kind of considered my field of study when I was in graduate school. I was trying to figure out how to kind of do a degree in Christian Kabbalah. So we'll do like a Kabbalah stack, and I'm thinking the next pile is going to be like an alchemy stack. So maybe John Dee is going to be magic, but we'll see. See what I find in here. Johannes Reuchlin, Agrippa, Dee. This is just like one page. I'm not sure what the deal is here. Then on the back, Reuchlin notes Angel. That's probably from my master's thesis. And here's more stuff. Aha, yeah, here's some just like quotations from Deborah Harkness. I'll just leave that in the same pile. Alison Kudert, no, that's magic. This is her book on magic. Magic, Science, and Religion. Alison Kudert was a mentor of mine. Oh, and then, this is just her. This is all just her book. It goes in the magic. I met her at UC Davis. She was very kind to me. I went and just visited her during her office hours, and the reason I sought her out was because I heard that she was a student of Francis Yates. And she welcomed me. She called me a fellow traveler and took me under her wing and invited me to her conference. That's when I went to my first ASE conference I mentioned above. So this is from a class, Aesthetics of Contemplation. I'm guessing this was one of Mark Delp's classes, Ecclesial Hierarchy on Pseudo-Dionysius. So I'm going to put that in the Christian Kabbalah, because that's what my paper was for the ASE. It was Pseudo-Dionysius and the Christian Kabbalah. So I'm thinking anything Kabbalah, Christian Kabbalah, that's all going to go in its own space with any of my master's thesis related printouts. Most of my master's thesis related stuff I threw out. Now this is fun. Here's some there's this game that we were playing. It's sort of like Exquisite Corpse, but with images, where you somebody writes a phrase and then somebody draws a picture and you fold the paper over, right, so you don't see the one from before, and that's unmistakably the art of Isan Amanatola, I'm pretty sure. That's fun stuff. That's just going to have to go into a personal pile. Results of a weird game. And so, yeah, this is interesting. This is all like handwritten notes. Maybe I'll just have like a miscellaneous handwritten stuff pile. I'll put that down here on the shoebox. Here's an ad for Abracadabra, Jewish Magic, Folklore, and Fantasy. Must have picked this up at a conference or something. Oh, Jewish Magic, Folklore, and Bibliography. Huh. Oh, it's like a whole little pamphlet, curated. Oh, so this was an exhibit that was curated. Here's a curator statement. Well, that's fun. I didn't even know I had that. Put that in the Kabbalah stack. I did take a class on Jewish magic at UC Berkeley. The teacher, who was a graduate student, was very fun. Oh, look, here's one of the printouts from my MA thesis. This I can probably, honestly, just... And let's see, but that's a like front page matter. That's like explaining my methodology. So, and here is, the emblematic as a way of thinking and seeing in Renaissance culture. So this definitely goes in an alchemy stack, right? Alchemy... this is by Georgi Soni, who also wrote a book on John Dee that I like. So I was very curious to read this, what this fellow had to say about the emblematic and the postmodern. And one of my projects is going to be to write about alchemy, specifically alchemical illustrations, and maybe put together like an online course. Practice my chops. Here's more handwritten notes. Practice my chops with all the... Ha! There's a notepad labeled Ted's MA thesis from way back in the day. It's got a Jonathan Z. Smith quote. Facts become data only for purposes of argumentation. Love that guy. R.I.P. We are initiated into these matters by the sacred rite. This has got to be some Pseudo-Dionysius class notes. Aquinas' disputed question on spiritual creatures. That actually goes with the Christian Kabbalah stuff, because that was when I was working on Aquinas to understand Pico della Mirandola's take on angels. Some reflections on the relationship magic to religion, H. Versnell and Newman. So this is definitely in the magic category. Aristotle's concept of dunamis and techne, that's in my Pseudo-Dionysius and Aquinas. Okay, Iamblichus is on the mysteries of Egyptians. This is the Thomas Taylor translation. Cool. And a bunch of notes on the back. Pico had access. So this is when I was working on my Pico stuff and reading about Iamblichus. That goes in the Pico pile, the Christian Kabbalah pile. Whatever this is hidden. There's just a couple of... Oh, here's something else. Towards Monotheism, M.L. West. This is like some ancient world stuff. Dionysius, Derrida, the critique of ontotheology. That's something I reported on in Mark Delp's class. I did one of my projects in grad school. So M.L. West, Towards Monotheism. That's not exactly magic, right? It's kind of more like a Neoplatonism. I almost want to put that in this pile, but I'm going to create another pile for that sort of thing, the Neoplatonic stuff. Making the book Talismanic, an interview with Robert Ansel. That's magic enough. The language of angels. That's angel stuff. Angel metaphysics all goes in my Christian Kabbalah. Somebody made a Ted with a happy face folder for me. What's in here? Just a couple of pages. Oh, this is from teaching. This is from ELS. I can just pitch that. That is just stuff about very ancient classes with very ancient students. Oh, speaking of Kabbalah, we have a little tree of life that I made with ink. And I used to do a lot of doodling. We have the Angelic Stone in English Alchemy by the late Dan Merker. Nice fella. I wish that he hadn't passed so young. I emailed him one time. He was very helpful, and he's like, if you ever want to do therapy, I'm for hire, and I really wish I'd hired the guy, because he wrote some really cool stuff about Renaissance magic and Hermetic stuff that was sort of tuned into the altered states of consciousness and transpersonal psychology kind of thing. He was a transpersonal psychologist, and that was really foundational and inspiring stuff for me. I'll make a video about Dan Merker one of these days, and leave a note in the comments if that's something, any paper or name that I mention, if that's something that you want to hear more about. I also do offer esoteric studies coaching if you want to do research on this stuff. Sliding scale for interested students. I mean, if you're a broke student, just hit me up and I'll help you for free. And if you can pay for more serious tutoring, I am available. Pleasant Campania. So this is, The Power of Memory. This is Giordano Bruno. Something. Well, something Giordano Bruno. I feel like he deserves his own pile. So why don't I do over here? I have a Giordano Bruno pile on top of my laptop. Meeting minutes for open discussion. Oh, this is from that same school. Oh, but it's covered in notes. Oh, it's notes about the school. This is kind of fun because it does have some of my old sigil art on it, so I guess I'll just add that to the pile of handwritten stuff. The Pearl Diver Theory to Charts Theology of the Quadrivium. That goes in my MA thesis / Christian Kabbalah. Alchemia Archetypica, Theurgy Intertransformation, and the Historiography of Alchemy by Hereward Tilton. Now, this is a guy that wrote the Michael Meyer book, The Quest for the Phoenix, and I appreciate this guy's work. Although I often have a bone to pick with him when he's sparring with Principe and Newman about the new historiography of alchemy stuff, because I don't think that those guys are trying to shit into your coffee, Hereward Tilton. I think that they're just trying to defend all the good chemistry that they've discovered and can prove can be extracted from these alchemical texts. Claire Fanger, Introduction, Theurgy, Magic, and Mysticism. Claire Fanger's Invoking Angels, which is the book that I recommend you check out from her first. Her new one's great, where she kind of does like a very personal take on all the research that she's been doing on her guy, the John of Marini, or whatever, the magical grimoire medieval priest guy, or monk. He was very concerned about trying not to masturbate, as I recall. But some very beautiful magic stuff. And here Claire Fanger gives a kind of a typology of theurgy, and what do we mean by theurgy, and when applied to like grimoire magic, and really good stuff. Really good theory on applying a concept like theurgy to the medieval magic stuff. The Dissemination of Magical Knowledge in Enlightenment Germany. That goes in my magic pile. Oh, here's some Greek. This must be Iamblichus. It's missing like a page, and we got like side by side Greek and English. That'll go my MA thesis stuff, I'm sure. Nectar and Renaissance Esotericism. More by Dan Merker. Stages of Ascension and Hermetic Rebirth. Gold, solid gold. Stephanie Spoto, Daimonic Imagination, Uncanny Intelligence, John Dee's Conversation with Spirits and Problems of Practical Occultism. Yeah, here's an online friend, and her work on John Dee is pretty cool. So it goes in the magic stack. Can't remember a whole lot about it. I remember it was good. Look forward to digging back into it. Aha, Francis Yates and the Writing of History. I'm so glad I found this. This I'm going to stick on my Giordano Bruno pile. And this is a bunch of stuff that is like reviews of Francis Yates, Stephen Klukas, emblems to diagrams, Heinrich Kuhnrath. So this was like the result of this JSTOR deep dive I did on Francis Yates adjacent stuff. Philosophical prayer and Proclus's commentary and Plato's Timaeus. That goes in the MA thesis pile because that's part of the Neoplatonic metaphysics underlying Pseudo-Dionysius concept of prayer. Mystical experience, Zeke Mazur. The late Zeke Mazur was a friend. I actually got to meet him one time when he was passing through Berkeley. He had a wife and a kid in tow, and it's just such a bummer we lost him so young. But Zeke Mazur was doing some really cool work on Plotinus and how there's this sort of more of a theurgical, magical element to Plotinus than is usually advertised. And he was one of those scholars that was very hot on the connection of Gnosticism, the influence of Gnosticism on Plotinus, or the kind of dialogue that he was having with the Gnostics. Chartrian theology on probation. That's more stuff that I read because Mark Delp turned me on to 12th century Renaissance Neoplatonism. Johannes Scotus Eriugena, that's another one. Proclus and the Timaeus, and Numenius. I was getting into some really deep. Here's when I was highlighting in highlighter, getting into some real deep Neoplatonic metaphysics. John Dillon on Numenius, some ontological questions. Speaking with Angels, Rebecca Lessis. So here's a scholar who's done some great work on Jewish magic, writing about Jewish and Greco-Roman revelatory adjurations. So that's some cool stuff for the Angels MA thesis pile. Angelology in Pico della Mirandola was my thesis topic. Here's Agrippa. Agrippa's School of Love teaching Plato's Symposium at the Renaissance University. So that's my magic studies. I'm about to pull the trigger on that new Agrippa book, but it's a little expensive. But you can donate to this cause by sending me PayPal or Venmo tips if you really enjoy my work. Wayne Schumacher on John Dee's Conversations with Angels and Renaissance Curiosa. This I remember I was in grad school and I made this photocopy at a university. It was Berkeley or somewhere, and he's one of those historians that tried to get to the bottom of the actual mentality of Renaissance magic, but he's also pretty rationalist and kind of anti, Sephirotic systems and the Sefer Yetzirah Bahir and Post-Zohar Kabbalah, how the center was lost. Some weird stuff there. Protagoras, Socrates. So these are just kind of more like printout-y kind of things. That seems like generally MA thesis adjacent. John Dee and the Alchemist, by Jennifer Ann Rampling, who wrote a very exciting book about English alchemy. One of my pals from a conference I met, Jennifer, Dr. Jennifer, way back in 2006, I think, when I went to the CHF conference on alchemy, the Chemical Heritage Foundation in Philly. And this is more of an alchemy thing, so that goes in my alchemy stack. Might be a reading in my alchemy class. Glenn Perry's book on John Dee. Very cool to have this. This is way more recent. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola and Elia del Medigo. So this is Pico's interest in these Aristotelian philosophers, and I was really interested in Pico's quarrel with Marsilio Ficino over the Neoplatonic concept of the one. So I was very interested in Pico's contacts with these Aristotelian philosophers, and starting to get into his interest in Averroes. Stuart Clark, Vanities of the Eye, Vision in Early Modern Culture. Stuart Clark wrote a very cool book on witchcraft studies called Thinking with Demons that uses a lot of kind of like heavy-duty theory. I seem to remember there was a bit of Foucault in there, and it was just very heavy-duty, very heady, and very inspiring. So I was curious to see what he had to say about vision in early modern culture. I almost want to put that in like a different pile here, like the early modern. So why don't I just make a pile on this chair? This is going to be just kind of like early modern studies or something like that. Like I want to do more research in like square early modern studies, not like necessarily esotericism based, but just expand out into more literary studies, more like art history kind of studies, theorizing the Renaissance and the early modern. Noah Gardner. So Noah Gardner was another pal that I met at that very first Esoteric conference. He's gone on to do great things. He has made this awesome discovery that Al-Buni and Ibn Arabi shared a teacher, and other cool stuff like that. So very grateful to know that guy who invited me to his conference. Let me crash at his place, and I had a really nice time at the Society Magica meeting a year or so back. Art and Artisanship in Early Modern Alchemy. Now this is one of the ones that I started this hunt hoping to find. I don't know why I can't get you to focus. Can we focus? Coming into focus. All right. Art and Artisanship in Early Modern Alchemy. So there's some really cool studies on the kind of lab tech side of alchemy and how that connected with artisans creating their materials. So that'll be really interesting for my class. I'm hoping to get a friend who is a visionary artist to join me. Living the Enlightenment. Creating Constitutional Society. Oh, this must be Margaret Jacob. Temples of Virtue, Palaces of Splendor, British Masonic Vision. So that's going to be, or am I just like more general early modern history? Transmission of alchemical knowledge in the 17th century. That goes in alchemy. Peter Forshaw on Heinrich Kunrath. Very nice guy. Peter Forshaw. Met him at that alchemy conference. He's now at the University of Amsterdam, or last I heard. You can see him do some really awesome web seminars on Heinrich Kunrath and the amazing alchemical emblems that guy did. There's a little kitty paw print. More Ben Johnson's Alchemist in Early Modern Laboratory Space. So like I said, I'm interested in the whole new historiography and the history of science guys who are working on alchemy. So anything I can learn about the laboratory. So Studies in Alchemia. Oh, this is a book on, this might be the one on, and it's only a couple pages, so whatever it is, I only have. Jabir ibn Hayyan, yeah, who was a medieval Arabic alchemist. The Heroic Age, John D. King Arthur and the Conquest. Yes, I used to get like really into the weeds. It's not something I would have necessarily saved. Another one on the historiography of alchemy by George Florin Cayley, and I at the same time find this very interesting. I also have a bone to pick with the attitude some scholars have toward the new historiography of alchemy. The Salt of the Earth, Natural Philosophy, Medicine, and Chemistry in early modern England. So this is a really cool book on the kind of technical chemistry stuff, especially this concept of salt, which Paracelsus added to sulfur and mercury as like a new alchemical principle. Alchemy, Chemistry, and Chemistry, Extraordinary Delusions. Well, obviously goes in my alchemy pile. Getting some good sorting done tonight. Oh, A Maze of Death by Philip K. Dick. I'm going to be chatting with my friend Bill Cyril tomorrow, who was a friend of Philip K. Dick, and actually Dick said that this fellow was the inspiration they had this conversation about multiple universe physics, the John Wheeler article, which Bill brought, and he was a house guest at Dick's for a little while. They were buddies. This is back in the 60s or 70s, so stay tuned. Or well, by the time this comes up, you will probably be able to see it. The role of virtue and divine grace in the Corpus Hermeticum. Okay, so a presentation of the philosophy of the Corpus Hermeticum. That can just go in my magic pile. The Magic of Plotinus's Gnostic Disciples. Same author, but different topic. That's going to go in my Neoplaton. It is magic. Yeah, let's put that in magic. Michael Myers' A Subtle Allegory. That's alchemy stuff. I do want to do a whole series of videos on Michael Myers' alchemical images. That's a high priority. Tongues of Fire, Whirlwinds of Noise, Images of Spiritual Imagination. Eric Davis Classic. We can just keep that in for magic. Philip K. Dick's Divine Interference. Another great Eric Davis. Technosis by Eric Davis. This is the original article, not the book. The Love Theory is a Chrétien de Troyes. I'll just put that in my medieval studies. That's a King Arthur author, literary author, nothing esoteric there. The Exploration of Experience, Humphrey Osmond. Do I need a psychedelic studies pile, or does that just go in magic? Yeah, The Mushrooms of Language by Henry Munn, another psychedelic class. Ooh, The Absence of Nothing. Here's one of my college writings. Very embarrassing stuff there. I'll just put psychedelic stuff in magic, I guess. More notes from the MA thesis. Bias against Neoplaton. I really had a bone to pick against how hard it was to do esoteric studies there. Or just handwritten notes. Excuse me. Beautiful stuff. Hopefully I'll edit that out in post. Otherwise, excuse me. Psychology of Ecstasy by Austin Osman Spare. That's some magic stuff right there. At Play on the Screens of Our Lord, Spirituality and Video Games by Eric Davis. I forgot that he wrote about that. More MA thesis stuff. Here's T3DY's tweet book. So here's a bunch of tweets that I wrote while I was working on my MA thesis, just to get myself writing. My recent therapist signed off on this practice. Palamas and Aquinas. So here's this is from Aristotle East and West. Yeah, so that's another MA thesis pile about kind of all the weird Aristotelian metaphysics that led to stuff like the theory of the agent intellect and the all this weird mystical stuff that went under the kind of Christian mystical interpretations of Aristotle, and or that went in both Eastern and Western first millennium Christianity. There's a bug that came out of all this. Aquinas, Angels, and Demon Lessons. That definitely goes in my Pico della Mirandola. Thomas Aquinas. I'm glad I ended up saving some of this stuff. Stuff about Kabbalah, Angels, and Thomas Aquinas's Summa Theologica or something like that, or Questions about Angels. You can see it's in that Thomas Aquinas format with all the on the contraries, sed contra. Pseudo-Dionysus. So this is all MA thesis stuff. Some more handwritten. You can see how my handwritten notes hug to the page. More notes. Reply to objection, whatever. I have written PD in the margins where Aquinas is commenting on PD. This is some kind of bibliography. Yeah, I'll just MA thesis. MA thesis. Christian Kabbalists. Iamblichus, Synesius, and the Chaldean Oracles, and Marsilio Ficino's 3 books on magic. Hermetic magic or Neoplatonic magic. This got to be Brian Copenhaver. Glad I still have printouts of this stuff because his website went down where he was sharing all that. More Areopagite, Elliot Wolfson, that's Kabbalah, Renaissance magic, and the return of the Golden Age. Just sources. It'll be really fun to go back through all this. one of these days, and leave a comment if you want to see me make videos talking about my unfinished master's thesis, which you can read at Angelology on blogspot.com. Thomistic Doctrine of Practical Reason. I was really struggling with all that Thomas Aquinas. Dreams, Theurgy, and Freelance Divination, the Testimony of Iamblichus. That I'll put with the Neoplatonic stuff. That wasn't necessarily directly bearing on the... not done here. By Polymnia Athanasiadi. Classics of Neoplatonic Studies. And then, here's a paper that somebody wrote comments on. That's fun. Pseudo-Dionysius. And then this is something I wrote about Pico della Mirandola. They're writing things like transition. Yeah, more printouts of my writing on the thesis. Stuff with PD written in the margins. Oh, but here's alchemy. Representations of alchemy. Oh, I don't know. I'll go through that later. Oh, and then here's some book reviews. Book reviews on Maimonides. It's got to be MA thesis. Ah, The Wife of Michael Sendivogius by Rafael T. Prinke. Definitely a scholar worth reading in alchemy. Stories of the Birth of Modern Alchemy. Maimonides' Medical Aphorism. That has nothing to do with alchemy. Just put that in the early modern medieval studies. Rasimus Paradise Reconsidered. Oh, on the Nag Hammadi. This is Gnostic stuff. Gnosticism and later Platonism. So I can go in the kind of Schwepp pile, the Neoplatonic Studies pile. Did a whole lot of stuff that downloading PDFs inspired by my interest in the Secret History of Western Esotericism podcast. Albert. So this is, this is Paolo Zambelli, the Speculum Astronomiae and its Enigma, Astrology, Theology, and Science, and Albertus Magnus and his contemporaries. And this is a book that might not really have been written by Albertus Magnus on astrology. That goes in the magic pile. You can see I very extensively noted that. That'll always make a fun video. What did I write in the margins 20 years ago? Do I even know why? Robert Anton Wilson on Aleister Crowley. Magic topic. I kind of do need a separate psychedelic pile, but I can separate that out later. Almanacs and Prognostications by Lauren Cassell, who did some really good work on one of those English astrologers and physicians, Simon Foreman, who consulted with a lot of patients. Oh, here's Aristotle, East and West, a complete one. You can see, very well noted. I don't remember a single thing I learned from it, but... and this must have been some presentation I was doing. Kabbalah, printed it out, and then later wrote a bunch of notes on it. So that goes in the pile. Ficino and Renaissance Neoplatonism. There's a nice photocopy of the front cover of the book. More printouts. Oh, Angels and Medieval Philosophical Inquiry. Well, that goes in my Angels pile. Franciscus Mercurius van Helmont's Kabbalistical Dialogue, the Don Carr. That's something that Alison Kuderet wrote a book on. And more tweets. Pico's oration invents a new metaphor for the old Dionysian mystical model. Breaking through scholasticism, he suggests spiritual angelology. Man, I was just channeling that stuff. And here's one of them plugs. Oh, the new kind of plug. This one fits my phone. I've been looking for this. It's like, what happened to that? So we are done with one box. I'm going to take a break. Thanks for watching. Watch the next video.